let me point it to you because you're obviously an energy specialist, metal specialist. In the prior panel, one of the guys I had on, Austin, had a call on oil to the downside. He thought it was going 60. I'm actually curious, sort of like your view on that. What do you think? Where's 2025 for oil first and foremost?
So, I think ultimately we're going to be range bound for another year again, which is not a bad thing at all.
Right.
There's still plenty of trading opportunities. I do think that I think this level that we're currently at, this $67, let's call it $66.95, is probably not going to hold. I think you'll probably see a swift move to the downside. That said, realistically speaking, if we're talking about shale break evens, they're at $65. So anything below, I know I've seen these wild calls because Trump's going to be in office, drill baby drill, but I don't.
It just takes time,
that's necessarily going to be happening. So
it's not a water faucet. You can't turn it on, right? I mean, even if you said drill baby drill, it's not a water faucet. It's a lot of
exactly. And so these oil companies still, are focused on shareholder returns. They're not going to make the same mistakes that they did before, the prior two crashes. So, I don't think they're going to make that happen. I don't think we're going to see OPEC necessarily turn on the taps either. So again, I think this level that we're at right now probably won't hold. I'd like, maybe a swift move down to 63. When you start getting below that $65 mark for any length of time, you're going to start seeing production come off the market because they're not making money at 65 a break even. So, low prices are the cure for low prices, right? So I just don't think that it'll hold. But if we're talking about like a near term technical trade, I do feel like, we could easily see that $63 area.
On the geeky side, because I know I have you and I can't let you go, the Exxon field in Guyana, which is just this apparently massive upon massive find. What does that mean short-term, long-term for the market? I mean, is it like, is it the next nirvana for all of us? Because it's not, it's not the Middle East. It's very, very safe area. And it seems to be a really serious supply. What's the story there?
Yeah, man, I think it's really good. Yeah, there's a serious, what is good about offshore, and I do like offshore because we have right off the west coast of Africa, we have some interesting things happening, as well as off of the east coast of South America.
Yeah, South America, right? Yeah.
So what is good about these offshore projects? Let me say, what's bad about these offshore projects is they take a very long time to fully come online, 10 years, right. That project. But when it does, and that's all your upfront costs for those wells, because once you start drilling, your costs go down significantly, like half the price of what shale is. And so, there's good and bad with
super interesting
markets.
Yeah. So when it does come to its full fruition, it could be an incredibly massive source of energy for us, which would be great.
Yeah, it would be great, and at a much lower cost than, say, shale would be.
Right. Interesting. All right, I'll let you go without. I can't let you go without talking a little bit about gold. What's your view here into 2025? I know you told me privately that you're a buy to dip trade, but just sort of levels. Where do you think you'd be a buyer, and where do you think it has a chance to go to in 2025?
Well, I'm a long-term gold bull. I personally welcome this pullback dramatically. I do not like parabolic markets. They scare me because then you have these mean reversions, right? And so personally, I'd rather see the market go up a couple $100, come back 100, go up a couple, I think it's a much healthier market action, but, I think we could see over 3,000 in 2025. But again, I do welcome this pullback. The reason being that I don't think you're going to see central banks stop buying at any time, because there's still that risk that, what happened to Russia might happen to them, as far as, the Federal Reserve confiscating their money. And that's really when we saw central banks saying, well, we may be friends with them now, but what if we piss them off? They may confiscate our money. So I think you're still going to see a lot of central banks buying. You have an interesting thing, right now in Zimbabwe that's happening, where they have a gold-backed currency right now. We may see other countries try to have a gold-backed currency as well, depending on how this kind of experiment works out for them. So we'll see. I think we're not seeing, it's not like we're seeing capex blow out, right? I mean, none of these mining companies they're doing exactly what oil and gas is doing. They're just a little bit behind where, you're going to start seeing a lot of mergers and acquisitions. They're going to be buying production instead of actually expanding new production. And so I think that sets us up for a very bullish scenario, fundamentally speaking, into 2025.
Cool. And gents, real quickly, because we're running out of time, but I'd love to just know just a quick thought on equities, bonds, Jimmy, 2025. Are we gonna? Is it first 6 months of honeymoon and then we're gonna just dive? What's your vibe on the whole thing?
I think I want to buy this dip here for an end of the year run. I don't think this is really going to fall apart too much. But I'm watching the back of the curve. That's at some pretty hairy levels, kind of standing on a cliff. And we haven't gotten any bounce in the back of the curve, the 10s, 30s. So I am worried if I see that like really come unraveled from here, then I'll back off the dip buys and equity.
What's unraveled in your view? 5? Like at what level are you going to go? Oh, this is going to.
I think if we start selling off from here and start heading back towards our old lows, I think it will get intense really quickly from this point. I don't think we're that far away from all of a sudden, having an issue.
Okay, cool. And Tony, what about you? How are you feeling about 2025? I know you still continue to be buying the dip because the trend is still up. But like, what's your any clouds on the horizon for you, or are you still staying strong and long?
Well, I bought calls in NASDAQ a week out on the close on Friday, just because I'm with Jimmy. I think this every sell off right now, I'll continue to buy dips. I mean, I'm not going to go home long futures into the weekend because I'm not insane. So, I do think that into the end of the year, it's hard for me to see a reason. I go back to news. Is there going to be news? I think majority of the news is behind us. And so you always have the overreaction, then the reaction to that. And then now I think we're kind of stabilizing. I think if there's a sell-off, it probably comes in January and goes back to what Jimmy said. I agree 100% that we were talking about how Andy was saying, look at the back end of the curve and what's happening there. I mean, even the 2 years up at what is it at 4? What is the 2 year, Jimmy?
413, 425.
Okay, so how is the Russell going to be that trade that's going to continue to go up if the borrowing on the short end of the curve is as high as it still is? I mean, you just don't have a market that tells me it's just going to keep ripping higher. But I also don't see a reason to sell into the end of the year. And I think because this year's been so strong years just don't end flat or just come all the way back. So I like bullish into the end of the year. And I think January could be interesting, especially if bonds stay where they are.
I can't let you guys leave without you sharing your great trick, which is you have this really cool way of like opening up the way the price action opens at the beginning of the year can sometimes determine actually direction, at least sometimes for the full year, but definitely for the first quarter. So can you just share with our audience how, like if it makes the high and it just doesn't, that high doesn't get broken, that's usually high stays around for a while. Could you expound on that a little bit?
I don't have necessarily a complete system that I would go and explain the way I look at it. But I mean, just from doing it, the three of us have been doing this a long time, the four of us, right? And just from watching that how often do you see years that were really strong just give back a huge part of the year in the last month? I mean, I can honestly say in my career, if I look back, my memory does not really trigger any times where that happened, right? I mean, there maybe has been a couple. I remember there was that one year, I don't even remember which one. It's all kind of a blur. That wasn't 1 week of like the week of December where we had that huge sell off, but didn't it kind of come right back before the end, for the new year? Maybe they could shed light on it, but it's like, yeah, that could happen, but it'd be a dip I'd buy.
That's the risk. I love the dip buy here on the Trump victory. Growth, all the prospects, but that year that Tony's talking about, that was the year that Powell was a little like he delivered a hawkish hike in December with low liquidity. No one was minding the store, and the market really became unraveled that year in late December. And we're in a similar situation. We have a Fed meeting, we have hot data coming in, and we could see volatility. That's the only thing standing in the way of this equity market is if the Fed has to pivot in December of all months, and you see what
we could have a whole show on that one, Jim.
I'll leave you guys with a last word because that's fascinating. I want to thank you so much, guys. I could do this for 4 hours with you guys. It's fascinating. Thank you very much, Tracy, Chai Girl. Thank you, Anthony, who's got to do a million different things today that he was telling me. And Jimmy is just going to chill, go to the beach, and probably have the best day of all of us. Thank you, guys. I wish you all the best. Everybody, please follow them. They're amazing, great sources of information and trading. And I want to thank you so much again.